Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a Swordcraft deck. This is not a perfect Swordcraft deck because I do not have all the legendaries that would be required to build the most popular of the Swordcraft decks right now, a mid-sword, but I did my best with what I had and it turned out okay. I was actually surprised by how well it could do even without what I had needed. So I only have 2 Sky Commander Celia, usually you'd run 3. I only have 1 Mars, a lot of people are running 2 of that, although some are running 3, I think 2 is probably the better spot. Arthur, again, I only have 1 of. If I had more, definitely would run more of it. Not sure whether I'd want 2 or 3 though. And Sky Fortress, I definitely run at least 2 of, probably even 3 because it is such a good card. But everything else is pretty much stock standard for the most part. I do have the triple council card knights because I do enjoy that card quite a bit. Oh sorry, double card knight. I forgot I dropped 1 so I could add in something else. Of course, the Chromatic Duel being probably the key card these days. Honestly, it's an amazing one, and I'm surprised that it's not more popular, I guess. Well, not more popular, because it is ran in basically every Swordcraft deck. I was trying to think of what to say there, and I really just lost track of what I was going on about, but it's fine. Honestly, it's still just an amazing card, and does an amazing job at working itself into things. Then, of course, Holy Bear Knight I think is great as well. The Fanfare and the Ward work out really well together. And then Innocent Princess Prim, great card on 8, especially with the free silent, it's pretty good. Really enjoy that card, at least messing around with it as well. This, surprisingly, Sword got a lot of good cards, it's actually quite impressive. Magical Marksman, choose Holy Pure Bomb or Fatal Spell Bomb. Still a great card, being able to remove things is amazing, especially when you have both Banish Amulet removal and Standard removal built into a single card. And of course, that's pretty much it for all the new cards. Everything else is stock standard for what you would normally run when you're running an Arthur type build, and it does its job, so we'll get right into it and check it out. So first up is Blood. Blood presents itself pretty strong in the current meta. Both Vengeance and Aggro seem to be doing a crazy good job. But we're not doing too bad ourselves with this sword deck. I had a little bit of a rough start getting used to it because I'm not a big sword player and I'm still getting used to a lot of the new cards, but once I've kind of adapted to what I want to do, it's not too bad at all. So if I do normally have Chromatic Duel on 1 and have no other good play such as Quick Blader, I will usually play it out on 1. I have started to decide maybe I'm better off holding it until 6, but even at 1 it's not bad to fill out your curve, especially when you don't have any other 4-drop to go on with. Setting up our early ward, fortunately is removed by Snarling Chains. Pretty huge loss there, but we can at least remove this and set up the Bladed Hedgehog. I do like Bladed Hedgehog, so I mean, why not? A 2-3 on 3, it's pretty average, but we do also got to remove their follower, so I guess the value is there. Spiderweb Imp coming in, really hardcore. Not going to let us get away with anything, that's for sure. Lancer can come in handy.
At your service.
Of course, if you don't know, Lancer is the alternate art card for, I forgot his name, basically the 2-1 that has enhanced 6 to Bane. I do have it in the deck as well, so I'm sure you guys will see that. Just for anyone who wasn't around back when the Fate Stay Night events were going on. So Summon Bloodkin, not too surprising. They did leave up the 3-2, which was an interesting choice.
No quiet, nothing else.
Now we actually have some alright plays, because this does trade really nicely thanks to Mars. And with the Evo we can actually remove all of this and set up quite nicely.
Turn to ash and vanish.
I mean, you're not going to be targeting the 3-2 very quickly, because you want to remove Mars immediately, and with only 3 cards with the draw, it's going to be hard to remove everything that you'd want here. Of course, they are going to remove 1, which I suspect will be Mars.
The light shines on high.
It does only leave them with 3. And I go for the trade, thinking it's alright. I can get 1 damage to their face, which is good, and I can actually set up this ward pretty well. I do decide to hold off on playing the Celia,
newcomer's dream.
I really want to use that as my kind of later game finisher, or just when I think it has enough value to be used.
Let us conclude.
And now that they've used all their evolves, it should be in for a
Snared
treat.
and sent to heaven.
This is an equal trade. 4 for 4. Not bad at all. And now I don't really have any other play but to go for Celia.
Celebrate the beginning of the end.
But it's not too bad, because we can go for the 4 damage and replay the knights.
At your service.
Which means we already have a target for
It won't
Fortress.
be long now.
And getting 6 damage against this Bloodcraft player when they have no cards in hand seems like it's the best choice I have going for me. And if they did decide to go for something, I can easily throw a ward up next turn for free and get a buffed ambush, so that'll work nicely either way. They did leave this 6/6 up, which mainly because they didn't have a choice. They didn't really have the damage to remove it immediately, so it's not surprising they did leave it up, which basically guarantees me the lethal on Sky Fortress. If they hadn't have drawn basically useless cards, they would have been okay, but honestly, since they did, it's great for me and gave me a clear win. So next up on our video is Haven. Haven presents itself as quite a strong control deck, especially with both their Lion variants and Summit variants being both aggressive and defensive, which is quite impressive considering how Haven's been for most of the game so far. Haven usually stuck to more of a control variant with one Storm variant. Now they're kind of a mix and hybrid, which makes them a lot stronger as a whole and fairly interesting. It's definitely a deck I want to push more of,
Speed things up.
and if I had the hides, I probably would. Of course, the most awkward time at the moment is building decks for me, just because I don't have every single legendary I need to build every single deck, and that can be really awkward really quickly. Which is why I said this sword deck is not perfect, and you can build a much more effective one by adding in those legendaries I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Specifically adding the Celia and Fortress and Arthur as the 3 keys that really help, and of course 1 Mars really does add that little bit extra damage. Otherwise, the rest of the deck is basically what you'd want to run. Of course, you would just mess around with numbers, probably removing the quick bladers and freeing up some slots that way.
The white one is adorable.
So White Diamond, okay, not too impressed by it honestly. With what we've got now, we can actually do a massive amount of damage to their face, which I think is probably the most important part of this. And if I can hopefully spread out my damage as much as possible,
You are done for.
it's going to be hard to remove everything at once, because they don't really have an AoE that's going to be coming down on 5. At least not one that's going to have big impact.
I have lost.
Which leads to an immediate concede, so this is more of an aggro play. We're getting a good setup, it goes quite nicely. So that last game was, mostly so I could show off the aggro side of this deck. When it does go off, it goes off hard,
You must die.
and it's really difficult to beat. So the first game was more of a long game, that game was more of a quick game, and this one, not really sure, probably mid to long I think. Mainly because Shadow can be a nightmare to deal with if they go off pretty early, although if they don't, the aggressive setup that Sword can do could be quite harsh against them.
Let's speed things up.
You're mean.
So that early damage with Quick Blader is a really good way to set it up. Belenus though is kind of a nightmare to deal with, and I don't really enjoy dealing with it. And I don't really want to have to worry about Belenus proccing itself and killing off my Quick Blader super early, so leaving it up as is probably the best way to go.
This one's for you.
Especially since my turn 3 is going to be fairly solid.
At the speed of lightning.
Lancer creates a good trade, which at the same time boosts up my little tiny guy to deal more damage to their face. Although Belenus now actually has a trade target and is guaranteed to remove something, although they did a really weird trade, because if it was me, I probably would have hit the hedgehog, because you could guarantee at least a kill that way off the proc, which would have been a not really 2-for-1, but you would have had a really solid 1-for-1. And hedgehog minimum would have been at 1 health instead of 2, so a little odd on the trade, but overall not that surprising. Ended up with similar result regardless. It just probably would have made removing the hedgehog just that little bit easier. And now that we've managed to go full on aggression, I was a little worried to the start of the game, but being able to push out so wide is really hard for Shadow to deal with, especially in the early game. They tend to be the class that goes wide early with things like skeletons and catacomb and all those sort of plays, but when Sword can do it just as fast and just as effectively, it's not surprising that they would lack. Of course, we get to remove this 5-3 and we actually get a ward. Even though it only has 1 health, it's still plenty considering we can deal 3 damage to their face and set up our Celia for next turn. Celia is going to be a crazy win condition overall. I think it's definitely the perfect replacement for Albert. It does the job of Albert quite nicely and has a nice bit of versatility to go with it. Although the kind of late game finishing isn't quite as good because you can't get it up to obviously 10 attack easily. But it definitely does the job that you need it to do. So we were just out of range of using Celia in that regard. And I really should have played Chromatic Duel first if I was thinking ahead, but I really wasn't. I was just thinking of removing this Ceres as fast as possible because it's a little bit of a nightmare to deal with Ceres when you're playing a more aggressive build. And this time, regardless, we should do quite well. But that Zeus is going to be a real difficult one next turn if we don't get victory now. And without a 2-drop, we can't quite push lethal, which is unfortunate. So all we can do now is get as much damage as we can to their face as quickly as possible. And no, sorry, we return the Quick Blader. That's right. I was trying to remember why that play was important. And it was the Quick Blader. When I first played it, I thought I was one off lethal, but then when I returned the Quick Blader to my hand, being able to replay it again because we had the points gets us a win. That last game was very important. I mean, it definitely showed where I wasn't thinking to start with, because initially I thought I was off lethal, which honestly was a pretty easy mistake to make because I forgot Quick Blader. Of course, I was thinking more of normal knights. But Quick Blader getting that extra 1 damage was the difference between winning and losing that match. If they had have got Zeus out, there was no way for me to overcome that without drawing a Bane. That would have been my only out, and relying on that is extremely difficult. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe. You will find the deck list to this deck in the description below, so you can check that out. And I will catch you guys next time. See ya.